So Yark, tell me a little bit more about what's going on in your region. Any stories to tell?
Well, right now I've got listings, exclusives in North Van, Lower Lynn Valley. I also have a number of listings downtown and Falls Creek. And my inventory in Richmond has all sold out. So in terms of the seller side, the large luxury one bedrooms are taking some time to absorb. They're extraordinary. They come with rooftop decks, but not everybody can afford 820,000 for an 800 square foot one bed. If it had a den, it would have sold off the shelf a month ago. So some of this inventory is taking a little bit longer to move. My exclusive townhomes in North Vancouver, the luxury market, if it was in Vancouver, it would have moved by now. But unfortunately, 1.3 million for a townhome is a really tough situation, considering that in Burnaby, as Olivia mentioned earlier, you can certainly pick up a townhome for 700,000. I'm 700,000. So it's a really tough reality out there. My Richmond properties, the detached single family homes have moved under the 1.3 mark fairly quickly, even though they needed a fair amount of renovations. And the condos under 650 have all sold in Richmond. So October, November were certainly record months since 2015. And from the buy side, my clients are competing for duplexes and townhomes in Vancouver, and this is the 1.3 million range. Anything that's in a decent area, there's a lot of competition on that. And my clients are also competing for, sort of the large one beds in Falls Creek and Fairview. Kitsilano are very desirable, so they're beginning to feel that they're getting outbid. There's increasing interest now. We're beginning to pivot towards Brentwood in Burnaby. There's just not as much competition out there compared to Falls Creek and Vancouver East. So that's basically a snapshot from Yarrick. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Yark. Do you have a specific story about someone like from in your wheelhouse that's happened this week, like one specific client?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. On a listing side, I've got an interesting story. I've had a buyer for a property of ours circle back twice now to try to get a reduction on something, and I'm seeing sellers at the same time as there's an active market out there. I'm seeing sellers really hold tight to their value because they know what they're sitting on. They know what they have.
Yeah.
And so ordinary unique properties. I know that Les mentioned $7.5 million properties with large outdoor spaces. There's some really special properties out there that people need better metrics to analyze and to understand. They really need to look at the comps because I still see, and we in our inventory have really great deals that have 350 square foot rooftop decks with 360 views of the city and the mountains that are not selling. And I'm just, every other agent that I've met at the property is just like, this is going to sell in a week. And we're all almost pulling our hair thinking people don't see a good deal when they see it. So I think really, if you're working with an agent, make sure you're looking at really good data analytics so that you know what you're looking at. Don't just brush it off in a 20-minute viewing because sometimes you're turning over what could be a diamond.
Awesome. David, yourself?
Yeah, just to echo what Yark was just saying about people circling back. I just had a listing and a really $1.7 million great lot over in the Main Street area. An old Vancouver special, and my clients have been there for 36 years, and of course his box is knocked to the rafters, and it doesn't show very well. But we had a number of people through, and people have been getting beaten up in multiple offers for those types of properties over there because there's just no inventory. And so, surprisingly, we didn't really get what we were looking for initially. But of course, the next day, all the phone was ringing off the hook from all the people who had been through, wondering if it had sold, and if not, hey, can we bring an offer now? So it's an interesting market. People in the multiple situations where people are getting a little bit frustrated. There's no question. I have buyers working with in the same situation. We lost out on 4 multiple offers before we were able to get my 2 clients out of their condo and into the detached home in the $1 million range out in Maple Ridge, and that was frustrating. And talk about a lot of travel. But in addition to that, Kitsilano, as Yark also mentioned, I had a client call the other day, and I was out to see her place. It's a little studio. We're going to be listing it the first week of January. And she was asking about the value, and I said, well, you have no competition. And the last ones that sold like this, they're selling at almost $1,000 a square foot. So she was beside herself, and now she's super excited, and I'm excited because we know that this is going to be a multiple offer situation. It's a desirable unit in a desirable location, and it's very affordable. So that's what I was saying earlier about, if you're a lister, you better get things ready now for this tight market that's coming up in January, February. We don't know what the spring will hold when we get into March and April. We could see a ballooning of listings, or we might not. It's hard to say. It's strange times.
David, you had a really good success story with that property in Dunbar.
Oh yes, thank you for that. A character home, not an A designation, but a B designation, and very unique property. It was hard to say how that was going to go, and we got 99% of what asking for that property at the end of the day. From a very the buyer we were looking for, which we knew would be kind of like a young couple with a couple of toddlers, and they lived in the area, they loved the area, and they were able to get in at under $3 million on a 50-foot lot in a very, very nice home in a great neighborhood. And the professional athlete and his lovely wife and two kids bought it, and they're super happy about it. But it was a tricky sale. That heritage home.
Yeah, congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I jump in? Really curious. What separates an A designation from B designation? I don't know what that means.
Well, the A designations are there's a whole bunch of criteria that have been compiled, and to be honest, I don't know all of it. But in a nutshell, I would say that all of the home, the 80+% of the home has been retained. The original wood paneling, the siding, all of the windows, the foundation, all of the major exterior components of the home, most visual components of the home from the outside. In a B designation, this home, windows have been changed out, siding had been replaced, the roof had been replaced, but they kept the character of the home, the actual construction and look of the home. And the reason it was a B designation as opposed to a C designation, which is even less of a heritage home, was because they kept the original wood paneling. So it was 114 years old, this wood paneling, and it was meticulous inside.
Wow.
That's one of the reasons people would fall in love with it. And so many people came through that home that absolutely loved it, but they said, well, we'd love to buy it, but it just doesn't work for us. But it's a beautiful home. So it was a tricky one.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Olivia, yourself?
Yeah, I have an interesting story to share. So I had listed one bedroom in Den unit in Marble, 63rd and Granville. So great location.
Oh yeah.
And the building was built in 2002. And really the selling point of this one bedroom is that it's a corner unit, it's really bright. It's facing the quiet side. So we had listed, we used the under listing strategy. So it was listed for below 450. So for the first, in the first weekend, we had a lot of offers, and I was really surprised, and none of them has gone up to even our asking. So the client was a little concerned and just asking, what's going on with market? Does this underlist strategy work in a way? So I said, well, let's have some faith, right? We've only been in the market for 1 week, and and then it was beautifully staged. Anyhow, so the next week we had more offers coming in, and it was sold on the second weekend, and was again multiple offer. It has gone up significantly. So it was sold for $475. So very close to client's expectation, but client bought it many years ago. So the appreciation is there. So they're very happy about that. My strategy or my advice is that right now, it takes a little bit longer to absorb than the summertime or let's say last year. So even with good location, great property, easy to sell, it needs some exposure. So that's from the selling side. And I've got also another client recently. I love them because they are young new immigrants coming from New Zealand, and they are a family of 4 and 2 adorable young girls. So I always love touring with them. So their budget is somewhere below $1 million. So we want to find a townhome, 3-bedroom townhome in, let's see what's available, right? Like in good location, and they don't want anything too old. So we pretty much have seen Vancouver, Newland, Coquitlam, Burnaby, and it's really interesting to see that actually in Burnaby there aren't many inventory. There just are not many new townhomes when they're not available. When they come out and they got sold easily, and also the prices tend to be even higher than East Van. So we saw a few properties actually in Collingwood. There are a lot of new developments happening in Collingwood, especially half duplexes. They're very, very popular. I've seen a few pockets in Collingwood where houses being redeveloped. So those 3-bedroom tend to be like sometimes side by side or front and back, but they are kind of on the small side. So if you wanted something under 1 million, then you're really looking at just over 1,000 square footage. Townhome or half duplexes. If you want to move a little bit west to, let's say, Knight area, Knight Street is really popular, right? Like a lot of family moving there, redevelopment everywhere. And also the South Vancouver, there's houses being developed into half duplexes. Then if you see something under $1 million, usually go up for 1.2 because multiple offers. Half duplexes, townhomes are really, really popular in these areas. So because our budget, we did not end up getting half duplexes in East Van. So we went back to New West, and they find a beautiful property they love. So yeah, that was a story. It's about 2 months shopping around, and we finally find something that they love.
Fantastic, thank you. And Eric, what's going on in Richmond?
Yeah, I have to share a story, and I need to mention a pre-sale project, the Richmond Center pre-sale project. I was under a lot of pressure to get a 2-bedroom retire home units for my parents-in-law, and the project was way hotter than I was expected because the price is not cheap. It's close to start from $1,000 per square foot, but if you are getting a higher, let's say if you are on the nice 10th floor, you are looking around $1,200 per square foot. And across the street, like 5 years building is sold around $900 per square foot. So I think at the end of the day is the location, the finishing, because the Richmond Center project is finishing very nicely. Brand name appliances, European carpentry. And I showed them the project, they love it. So I have to fight my way through to get a 2-bedroom unit. And at the end of the day, I was able to get them something, even though it's not a corner unit they want to get. But anyways, I got them something. So yeah, they are happy. So I was released. That's about my side. Yeah.
Well, no pressure on helping your parents-in-law. There's never pressure there.
Yeah. So,
You don't understand.
I get it.
Family, I got lots of pressure. Help them.
Well, Eric, what would you avoid in Richmond? You and I both work in Richmond. We both have some unique experiences. Tell me what have you been telling your clients to sort of steer away from? Anything in particular?
Yeah, something about we all live in Richmond, and we can see lots of new construction along the number 3. But if you pay special attention, you will see some project has been stopped for like several months already. There's no movement. Then that's an alert. Because there are some first-time Canadian developers. They may be very experienced in Asia, but they are not used to here because the the process we work and how long the project will last is totally different.
Yep.
So that might be in some kind of issue, especially right now, the global environment is not that stable. So I will always recommend my clients buy local developer, buy big names, especially when the environment is not that stable. It's always a good choice. At least you know you are getting a good finished project in the expected time, right? It's not like in 2 years they told you, oh, we cannot finish the project. Now you are in trouble. So that's something I tell my clients when they buy pre-sale, because it's usually happening in 3-5 years, and it's a long time for a company. So it has to be very experienced. It has to be very reputable locally. That's something that's very important. I think you will be agree with me.
You know what I've seen? I will not name the project, but it was just Granville and Number 3. We don't want to slander any developers, but I'm seeing those projects return the contracts back to the buyers, hire a builder to finish the project, and then they go and resell the product at a very new price than it was originally sold 3 to 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So the no-name developers, so to speak, who have inventory that they got in trouble building, or they went beyond their comfort zone and beyond their skill sets. They had local builders, the likes of Brenta and Performance Construction, a lot of the companies that we've heard of, basically finish off their projects and resell them closer to completion at today's price points.
Yeah.
So I've seen that a little.
Yeah. No which way you are.
Yeah.
So I've got something also interesting to comment on. There's some projects, even if it's done by local developer, but it turned out to be different than what they advertised. And this, I'm not going to name what it is, but this project is recent completion at Metrotown. And the kitchen was very disappointing. A lot of people had high hope. They waited for years. It was delayed for a couple of years. Anyhow, when they got the keys, and everybody was almost, very, very surprised because of the outlook didn't turn out to what they had expected. So the resale value, or it becomes harder, much harder to resell as compared to, let's say, 2 months ago when they were selling assignment, and also people when the buyer get the keys, or even the assignment, right? The assignee, when they get the keys, they already paid higher price and they were not happy. So things like that, and not to mention later that the strategy has gone up so much more than what they had expected. Anyhow, people are, right now they are trying to get out of that new building. So you have to do your due diligence. You also cannot rely on everything what developer has told you. You need to perhaps look around and also see what are the comparables. Maybe there are some resale of very new buildings close by. It's finished products. You can see what's there, so there's no surprise.
Unfortunately, the neighboring buildings in the project you mentioned are finished rather well, and so we didn't expect for this particular project to have sort of below average kitchens and things like that. And it's unfortunate because even the same developers have different quality, one project at a time. I'm hearing that Oak Ridge is going to IKEA to build their kitchens. And I'm not sure if this is actually going to happen or not. But sometimes you've got these state-of-the-art developments that have these really incredible brands that are going to different third-party kitchen makers. And again, I'm not sure if that is confirmed or not. Perhaps they're just having conversations and getting quotes, but I was surprised to hear this kind of information.
Sure.
Well, this was a great set of information, everybody.
Yeah.
Anything else to add before we finish off?
Yeah, I'd like to say one other thing. On the COVID front, I have been impacted recently. I've had 2 listings. 2 of my clients take their properties off the market in the last 2 weeks because they are afraid of people coming through their homes.
Really?
So ever since the increased restrictions, the heightened restrictions came in, I guess about 2 weeks ago now, 2 of my clients who live in their homes, and they're both older, you know, have elected to say, look, I don't care how many people want to buy the place. We don't want to do anything. We don't want anybody in here. So cancel it and let's look at things in the new year.
Yep. Same here. I've sold a house for a 95-year-old, and the buyers who were moved subjects wanted to view it again with a potential tenant about a week or so after the new restrictions came in. And my seller said, look, we'd love to, but these until these restrictions are lifted, we don't want any tenants walking through our home. We have a Matterport. We've used Pixelink to record a lot of these really great photographs. We have a Matterport for the property, which is a digitized property. They can virtually see it online. Thank you very much, but we decline. So we're seeing a lot of that. So in terms of great technology, utilize great technologies to move your inventory, because right now, I think in the next 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks for Christmas, a lot of things will move. And if you're not using a lot of this tech to push properties out, another agent will, and your clients will realize that.
I have a question for you two. Let's say that from the buying side, if we represent the buyer on the contract, if we ask, this is one of the essential terms to allow for the seller to allow, second viewing or up to 2 viewings with reasonable notice. Can the seller reasonably reject the request?
We had that language actually in the contract, and we looked back, and the buyer already had 3 or 4 viewings as it is. So we basically said, look, that we've satisfied that clause, and I think COVID makes a very creates a very unique situation, right, for the interpretation of that kind of language.
You can also put a clause in there, and I recommend you do, for not only pre-sales, but for completions, possessions. These are all COVID related. Now you can get carried away, but minimally, I think you should have a clause saying that, look, if the parties agree that if there's the COVID lockdowns and completion gets delayed because the land title office is locked down or something like that, that they'll unilaterally move the completion and possession dates out until such time as the restrictions come off. That's one clause. Another is the viewing clauses, that you mentioned specifically, and that is, under the current circumstances, the buyer and, I would put in there that the buyer, whether I'm selling it or buying it, that the buyer is aware that, access to the property may or may not be granted depending on the current lockdown condition from the COVID.
Yep.
Something like that. And then that's an out for you to postpone those kinds of things.
Good point. David, I've heard mixed reviews about using the unilateral clauses with respect to pushing closing dates, because what it does on the legal side, it also contemplates or softly contemplates breach or postponement of dates of the contract. So it's kind of, I see what people are trying to accomplish with it, but I think they may also be unnecessary evil. So we're certainly not providing any advice here. Definitely talk to your notaries and lawyers and get some advice.
Yeah.
But
good point.
Both sides of the coin there with those kind of clauses. So
good point.
Some good consideration.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, guys. I think that that brings everything to a close. I appreciate everyone sharing their stories. It's really helpful to bring that sort of all together and talk about the clients themselves and what's going on there. So thank you so much.
Okay.
And then thanks.
Pleasure.
Have a great day, everybody.
Perfect. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.